I've gone in between bands. I've gone in between bikini dancers. That's fun.
Whoa.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
Smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro. You doing mine? Okay. A Courtney Cronin Dold.
Okay, Courtney, so what is the first music you remember loving as a kid?
I guess my father's music. My father listened to a lot of different rock, and but his two favorites are Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson.
Oh,
So you're just saying that.
Swear on my life.
Okay.
Swear on my life. And we can call my dad if you want.
That's unnecessary.
He'd be thrilled, actually.
we'll call him sometime
So that's
together.
what was in the house. And my mom listened to like terrible pop songs. So like once I was old enough to kind of like pick my own music, the first 45 I ever bought was Freeze Frame by the Jay Giles Band.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, so I was already like leaning towards rock. Like that was going to kind of be where I was. I realized that's like a little bit more like kind of, I mean, Jay Giles is a little more like jazzy, bluesy kind of, but that's a rock and roll song, Freeze Frame and Centerfold. And then my first concert was the Beach Boys.
Oh,
But
yeah.
my second concert was the Go-Go's.
Oh,
Nice.
And I'm like, where have you been all my life? So the Go-Go's and Missing Persons, I just constantly listened to until I was actually still not sick of.
That's a couple of
But,
great
like-
bands. I love the Missing Persons. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't appreciate like their awesomeness until I was an adult. You know, I just liked this, you know, the melodies and the sounds. Like I had no idea, like Terry's like this crazy, you know, worship drummer, and, you know,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know they were married. Like, I mean, I guess I could figure out by reading the back of the record, but I'm like, oh, they must be brother and sister. Like you just don't think about that when you're 9, you know, or 10,
Yeah, and
whatever.
Missing Persons, you would never know that Terry was an amazing drummer from that band because it was that new wave, just kind of keep the thing straight. But I was the same way. You start doing a little research, you go, oh, well, this guy is a beast.
Right. Well, a civilian like me would have no clue, you know, but like you guys would be like, what's he doing back there? Like, that's pretty crazy.
For
But
sure.
yeah.
So that was, well, as a kid, so when you start getting into high school and those days, did your taste change? Did you move on to anything like
Yeah.
we all do?
I went from like teenage girl pop, you know, and like whoever the cute boy was at the time, into more rock. Like my favorite band is Crowded House.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And people always think it's Kiss. Hello. But like, because I love Kiss and I'm in that Kiss, you know, world of Kiss nerdiness. Like that's a lot of my friends. And so, but Crowded House was like, I mean, I just got into them so hard, still am, and Squeeze. Like those were my two bands.
Man, two great songwriters and singers in all of those bands. I saw Squeeze like 5 years ago at the Ryman and they sounded amazing still.
Don't they sound great? I mean, they're
No
still
tracks.
going.
Yeah, they're just playing and singing, no tracks, no monkey business, just knocking it out.
Nope, killer band, super fun. They always play some weird, like, are you kidding me? They always throw in a super crazy deep cut for nerds like me, like, and it's really cool that I think they do that because they're totally forced to play the entire singles 45s and under album. They're forced to play that in the US.
Right.
But yeah, so those were like the two. And then, you know, early high school MTV comes out and I'm like, oh my God, Winger, what? You know, and like Kiss was cool when I was a kid, those monsters with the makeup, like I kind of like Cold Gin and maybe 2 other songs, but these songs are awesome. Like really got into like 80s Kiss.
Yeah. Well, I was the opposite. I got really into 70s and early 80s Kiss. And then when they took the makeup off, I was like, eh. But Raelyn is thrilled that Kiss is being brought up again in the podcast because literally half the people we talk about, me and he.
We
or
get
she-
it, y'all. Y'all love Kiss. Everybody loves Kiss.
You had to be there.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle choice more than it is being like a fan of theirs.
Yeah.
It's almost like a full commitment to like a cult, but like
Right.
a cult of like really awesome people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, that just want to drink beer in the day and talk about Kiss. Like,
Yeah.
And it's crazy how
pretty
many
laid back.
it's how many generations have discovered it too. Because I was, 8 or 9 when I first got Kiss Alive, and just looking at the album cover and all of the fire and all that stuff. It's like, they're breathing, they're spitting blood, all that kind of. As a 9-year-old man, and some rock and roll behind it, just reeled me in.
Yeah, it scared me, but I remember seeing them on Kids Are People Too, and being like, oh, they're not scary. Like, you can't make that connection as a kid. You're like, that guy's scary, because we saw Phantom on TV and thought Gene was a monster.
And you go back and watch it now, and you're like, how did I watch that? You should watch the Kiss movie. It's one of the funniest things you've ever seen in your life. I can promise you.
Okay.
Well, Ace Frehley was so hammered he couldn't even do lines. Basically, he was just making weird noises to screw it up, so they just had to keep
That's how he
it.
is now.
And then in the fight scenes, there's a still. It's great. They've got this black dude dressed up in Ace's makeup fighting, and it's so clearly a black
guy?
dude with his
His
makeup.
stunt double.
Yeah, so clearly. They didn't even bother finding anybody that looked like him. I can't imagine. They didn't do a documentary behind the scenes of making that movie.
It is interesting.
That's a great idea. Oh, sorry.
No. It is interesting that no other bands really put makeup on like that.
Well, they did. I mean, the New York Dolls did some of that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But they were just the biggest that came out. People weren't doing like superheroes or anything like that, but they were slapping on, during the glam era, people were slapping on pancake makeup and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I mean, like now, nobody can do that. Can really get away with that. Except
Hello,
for Kiss.
Insane Clown Posse.
Oh, yeah.
And like Slipknot
right.
wears like full body costume masks. Like, I don't even know how Corey Taylor sings with that thing on his head.
They gotta be sadists. Imagine the drummers.
Oh, they must be so major swamp ass back there. Like, there's no way. It's so gross.
Yeah.
No doubt. So what? I assumed you've seen Kiss. Did you see him in their early days?
No, I was a kid. So it didn't really interest me to go to the concerts. Like, even I had a boyfriend who wanted to go to the Irvine Meadows. Like, we were going to go, and we were like on our way down there. And I was just like, and then we got in a fight about something else, and somehow the car got turned around. So I almost saw that show, and I kind of wish I did, because it was like, I think one of Ace's last shows from when they put the makeup back on.
Right.
And they kind of did that, the rebirth kind of thing. But the first time I actually ever saw them in person, this is so weird. I was working on this TV show called More Sports with Jay Moore, and it was like a late night comedy sports talk show. We were on ESPN.
I remember.
But do you remember that show?
Oh yeah.
They kept changing our time slot. So sometimes we're on at 4, sometimes 11. Like, it got a little crazy, and it's a long story. But anyway, so I was on the Hollywood Center Studios lot, and across the way they were filming promos for that 70s show. And Kiss was in there. And they were doing the promo, and like, I just knew like one of the PAs over there, just from like, because I was the writer's assistant, but I was also like working my way up to being a writer. So I was like running around, so I knew everybody on the other shows just from being out on the lot all the time. And they're like, "Do you guys want to come in?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I went and grabbed some of the people from the show, and we went in, and it was like Barry Sobel. I don't know if you know Barry Sobel, the comedian. He was on the show, and Ralphie May. He was one of the writers. So we went in, and they let us stand in the back because they had paid extras in the 70s, kind of outfits to look like they were at the concert. And that was the first time. And I remember seeing them in the hallway and being like, Jesus, they're so tall because of the boots, and walking through the hallway. And we're like, is that really them? And they're like, yes, it really is. So that was like the first time. And they were lip syncing, which is,
that might be better than going to see a show, actually.
It was kind of cool. It was just like kind of private. Oh, this is I knew this was gonna happen. What happens is my dog, who thinks he's a person, will fake bark when I'm not paying enough attention to him.
Holy shit, that's what Raelyn does to us.
Yeah.
In the van. Yeah. We're used to it.
But because I don't have earphones on and because I'm talking, he thinks I'm not doing anything important. It's like if I sit on the couch and watch TV, he's like, there's no way this is important. So I'm going to fake bark until you come over, look out the door and give me attention. So
Just like you. Sounds very familiar. So where did you grow up? You mentioned like Warrant and Winger and that. Like, where were you when all that was happening?
I, weirdly enough, was going to high school in West Hollywood. I know you guys talked to Earl. I have kind of a weird, like, preteen high school kind of like Earl's because I went to high school in West Hollywood.
Okay.
And I lived like down the street. And I mean, I'm from Boston and that's where my family is. And that's where I started comedy. But we moved here when I was like 11. And it was weird because at lunchtime on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if you had a good GPA, you could go to lunch off campus because our school was really, really small. And we'd walk right up past the Whiskey and the Roxy and everything right there. My high school was right off Holloway, right where Book Soup is, right across from the old Tower Records. It was right there. So that's where I was.
Yeah, you were right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it. No idea how cool it was because I was like 14, 15, and we'd go up like in the afternoon after school, and we didn't know it was called sound check. We're like, can we listen to rehearsal? And like, you know, they would never let us in. We'd have to like stand like whatever. But if the door was open, I remember looking in and like wondering who it is. And it's weird, like in the back of my mind, there's like names on those marquees that are you know, that are in my head that I know now, you know, are like established bands with longevity. And it's like really weird to know that we were just traipsing up the street to lunch and there's LA Guns just killing it, you know, like how would we know? Like, so.
Yeah. And for a short amount of time, I mean, there's always been a huge music scene. We were talking to Earl about this, but during that, you know, 3 or 4 year period, it was the Sunset Strip was the heart of the rock music scene. Like everything was coming out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like lines down the street, around the corner. I mean, it was pretty nuts. I remember just randomly going into this like bar, like in between, and Michael DeBar's in there just singing with the house band, and I'm like, I just walked in here, like this is crazy.
It's so sad.
But you guys live in Nashville. That happens all the time there. Just like you walk in and there's you know Jesus or whoever.
There's we talk about this all the time. There is a stage at the Taco Bell downtown for songwriters. Yeah, I want to do a music video there.
Oh, you should.
Be great, right? We just have to make something like a taco song.
You should. And then afterwards, everyone's just like is in line for the bathroom, and they're just like, "Hurry up!" You think it's the audience, but they're like, "We're just here to use the bathroom." No.
So how did you transfer or getting over into comedy? What got you into it early on? Like, who were your first? What gave you an inkling that hey, maybe I like this?
Yeah,
comedy
like
thing?
the first comedian you loved, or your first
comedic actor.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say like who the first was. I was just always there. I was just always aware of like, you know, who was funny, what was going on. And I guess one way to explain it is at sleepovers when we go to the video store to rent a movie.
Oh yeah.
I always picked stand-up. And I wanted to watch stand-up specials.
Really? Whose? It just
I remember there was an all-female one with Margaret Smith. I think it was Margaret and Carol Leifer. And it's Sue's last name.
Costello?
No, not Sue Costello, but I love her. No, she's a little older. She was an executive producer on Chelsea Handler's show. I'm terrible. I'm so bad. But she was in it. And I remember watching that and like VH1 stand-up spotlight, like I couldn't miss it. And Girls Night Out, like I couldn't miss it. So, I mean, I guess the first like female comics that I really got sucked in by were definitely Carol Leifer and Rosie.
Yeah, and those were back in the days you had to search that stuff out. It wasn't as easy as just flipping through your phone or whatever. You had to be in front of the TV when it came on, or like you said, go to the Blockbuster and rent the, I don't know, VCRs when I started going there. VCR, I don't know if the DVDs were out yet, but
no, these were VCR.
Yeah,
these were tapes.
VHS.
Be kind, rewind. They would charge you if you didn't rewind it too. God, that made me angry.
so stupid. Like, just rewind it. Like, why does that cost money?
So you were watching stand-up comedy on VHS tapes. Did your parents, were they like, you're definitely going to be doing comedy? Like, were you the funny kid at home, or like?
Kind of like as a defense mechanism. I think a lot of comedians have that in common, where it's like we were definitely kind of oddballs. Like, nobody's ever like, there's just always a little something oddball and nerdy about us. Like in high school, I mean, I was like a decent student, and I was like on the student council, and I was president of my school. Like, I was a good kid, but like I was also like this big time super music nerd, and I was obsessed with the Monkees, and my bedroom looked like I had a shrine to the Monkees, and I was definitely going to murder them at some point, and like put up their heads as trophies of my kill. Like, that's how crazy my room looked. And, I actually forgot to mention that the Monkees, I don't know how I left that out, because I have a closet and a thing. I mean, everywhere I look around me, there's just monkey things. Like, we have a rule that all my rock and roll stuff goes, and we have like this big closet in the front, and all my rock and roll stuff goes in the rock and roll closet. But still, like, monkey things make their way out and into the house. Like, somebody gave me this at the Creatures Fest. A friend of mine just gave me this.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Cool.
isn't this cool?
That is really cool. I want
Yeah,
that.
and it's like this really cool collectible, like, odd thing. Something I wouldn't like buy for myself, like, ever. I always was into the music and the photos and all that stuff. But like, this is super cool. And I brought it to show John Billings at Wind Down Nashville. Who plays
Yeah.
the same with the Monkees, and Mickey's the only one left.
Yeah.
For many years.
Monkeys, or I'm just
I
making
think
that-
maybe he did for a
was
certain time.
Sandy Gennaro.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
drummer, yeah.
Yeah, he just drummed with us on a few gigs before, and the Monkees did a movie, right?
Oh, they did a movie, but they had a TV show too that was
TV show.
huge. They did a movie called Head. It was trippy. It was really trippy.
It was trippy.
Yeah, it was wild.
Okay.
I didn't get it as a kid.
Me
But then
neither.
I didn't get it. But then I find out it was Rob Rafelson and Jack Nicholson just smoking all night and just going, wouldn't it be funny? Or wouldn't it be cool? And that's the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And the
It's
TV show was
weird.
more slapstick, like Hard Day's Night, Beatles stuff.
Silly ridiculousness. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Beatles did that too. Forgot about that.
And the TV show's still funny. It still holds up. Like, I watch it. I mean, maybe because it's close to my heart, but I still watch it. It makes me laugh hard. Like, it's hysterical. It's
Where do you
funny.
watch it? Where do you watch it now?
It's on one of those weird random cable channels, but I also own them all.
Oh yeah, you're like VHS tapes.
Go into the rock and roll closet and pluck them out.
They're in the rock and roll closet.
So how old were you when you decided to try stand-up comedy?
I was 20, and I was pretty young, but I didn't really have the confidence yet. So I just everybody always told me I should do it. And I went to theater school, and I was in all the school plays and stuff like that. But I didn't really love acting. Like, I liked doing monologues or telling stories. So I was like, maybe I'll try it. So I got up at this coffee shop, and it was weird. And I remember looking at cards and being like, what am I doing? This is stupid. So then I went back to college, and I had like a kind of a near-death experience, I guess you could say.
Oh,
Kind of.
what happened?
Kind of. It was like a near, definitely gonna be assaulted, possibly kidnapped, scary thing
wow.
that happened. So after that happened, I'm like, I'm doing stand-up. And I just started writing about it. I'm like, this is so insane, and I'm fine. And, no finger laid on me. So like, I'm totally fine. But it was very close call with a crazy roommate that it was totally insane. Thought he was Jesus, was telling women he was Jesus, pretending to kill himself and come back to life. And then he would assault. He's insane. And anyway, that's an amazing story for another
Sounds great.
yeah, no, he continued on like
I'm kidding.
he continued on the craziness. Like, there's videos of him on YouTube, like trying to sing on morning talk shows because he was running for mayor of Providence, Rhode Island. And everyone would be like, okay, well, we're out of time now, because he was so insane. And then he had a heart attack driving in his car by himself, flipped the car, and now he's no longer with us. Thousands of lives saved from harassment and
Yeah.
brutality. Anyway, crazy.
He may be coming back.
Yeah, he might
we
be
don't
coming
know.
back.
He thinks he is. So he was probably like, oh, I'll be back. Yeah. So
He drove into a wall. I'm done now. Let's get this started.
yeah, he definitely thinks he'll be back. So anyway,
From
that
a
happened.
traumatic experience, you started writing.
Yeah.
jokes.
I just wrote jokes about it. I'm like, there's got to be something funny here. And then I just wrote a bunch of hacky, I'm a 22-year-old girl jokes. And I just went up and that was it.
In California? You were in LA?
No, I was in school. I was in college at Boston University. And there were a lot of comics that went there. And the Boston comedy scene is an excellent place to start because it's brutal. It's tough crowds, but there's a ton of stage time.
Yeah.
And there were like no women when I started. There was like 2 other girls and we hung out all the time, you know, and like help each other. But yeah, that's when I started. And it was when all those guys like Bill Burr and Dane Cook and Bobby Kelly, or not Robert Kelly, like that's when they were like just starting to break. So they were on all the shows that I was trying to get on and like, and open. And so it's kind of funny to be around that. Patrice O'Neill, like all those guys were always on those shows.
Yeah, we talked to Nick DiPaolo about the Boston comedy scene coming up, and he said, once you leave there, you're prepared because it's brutal.
Totally brutal. Nick DiPaolo, great example. I know you had Greg Fitzsimmons. I've opened for Greg a couple times, a million years ago back then. Gary.
Goldman?
Yes. I did tons of shows with Gary. And he would drive me. I didn't have a car. So the comics who lived there were cool about driving the college student comics who didn't have cars.
Is Gary as nice as he seems? He sure seemed like a genuinely nice fellow when we talked to that guy.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. I still like Gary. I've always liked Gary, always been super nice. Yes.
And he's got one of the all-time bits that'll never go away, the whole abbreviating the state's names bits. It's one of my favorite bits of all time.
He's great.
Hilarious. So
any other of those guys was like a brother to you like that?
Well, I mean, they were always like really nice. And I when I got to LA, I remember everyone kept telling me, you need to go to LA, you need to go to LA. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I've been doing this 6 months, like a year. Like, I don't know. And so I started doing some of the clubs in Boston, and then people were just telling me that. And I'm like, are they trying to get rid of me? Like what? Like, I didn't know why they were telling me this. So I go to LA, I do the open mic at the Laugh Factory one time, and I got passed that night.
Yeah.
Wow.
Threw me back up on stage for the 10 or 9 o'clock show or whatever to host. I was so not ready. I didn't know what the frug I was doing. I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. And then for the next like 5 years, that's where I, kind of, I don't want to say it was groomed, but that's where I worked out. That's where I became a comic. But I wish I went back to Boston more, which I always continued to do. But I feel like another couple of years in Boston, I would have been better prepared for that, because really all I did was become a house MC. But I got to work. I mean, I worked with Dane Cook like every week, and Joe Rogan and Paula Bell and Aisha Tyler. Like that's who I was introducing every night.
Yeah.
Like, that was the lineup I was on. And I wasn't even this close to the comic. I wasn't even this close to the comic that they are. Like, I wasn't even this ready or this. I mean, it was really hard. So I was like nervous every day. It was stressful. And then my comedy like brother was Ralphie May. He came in from Houston, and all of a sudden we were just best friends, like the first time we met. And
did you ever consider bailing during any of those times? Since, I mean, it had to be rough.
all the time.
Like every week.
Oh my God. All the time. I remember Dane Cook said that to me. He's like, Courtney, you're really funny in about 2 years. And I go, I know, I'm trying. Like I'm trying. And he didn't mean it in a mean way in any way or anything. But we were all, everyone was together there every night. Bob Saget was there every week. Like, it was the craziest lineup of people. I can't believe like that's who I was around when I started, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's the good thing is that I established good relationships and it made me work really hard. The bad thing was I can't compare myself to national headliners when I'm still an opening act. And the expectations that I put on myself were unbelievably unrealistic.
Right.
So, that's something I definitely regret. It was fun and it was great, but I think I would have been a better comic at 6, 7 years than at 17 years. That's kind of when I got to where I felt like, all right, because I've been doing it 26 years.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm here now, 17 years, this is it. I feel good now. But I should have felt that way 10 years before.
I got you. So you were doing a lot of that, hosting stuff instead of going out and hitting the road and playing just shitty rooms and just,
I did that too.
Oh, well, there you go. I don't know.
Everything.
It seems like you took the proper path. I mean,
I did.
You could have waited around, but those guys might have been gone by the time you got in, and maybe the crew you get in with is not as cool as Ralphie May and those guys. You know what I mean?
No, that's the truth. That's true. Actually, I toured with Ralphie for years. Like I went everywhere with him, and then his wife when they met. Like the three of us did stuff together all the time. But that was good for me. He taught me a lot. I just wish there was another woman kind of above me that kind of helped me. Gave me more advice, because we had this crazy manager who gave us nutty advice, and I just wish that was there. So that's what I've become, to other women.
Sure.
Who are new, and I work with them and I write with people, and I'm just straight up, here's what it's like, here's what's happening. And I just wish someone told me that, because I was super naive and I was a very young 22.
Is there more? It seems like there's a lot more female comedians now than there used to be. Because I remember talking to Kathleen Madigan, who used to go out on the road at 20 years old as just a single woman, and now it sounds preposterous and frightening or whatever. But she's like, that's just what you had to do back then. You just go out and whoever shows up at the comedy condo that night is who you're spending 3 days with.
Yeah.
Oh God, the comedy condo, yeah. Terrifying stories of stuck in a car for 5 days on runs with weird dudes.
Yeah.
I remember I took Jill Michelle Meili on. She's a great comic and actress, on her first run. And when she got in the car with me, I'm like, you have no idea how lucky you are to have me. That's the other comic.
Yeah.
Because let's talk. And then 5 days together, we had a blast. But, oh man, I've been jumped on. I've been literally tackled. I had someone run up and hold me like this so they could rip the microphone out of my hands. Crazy shit happening to me in my early 20s out in crazy whereverville.
Yeah.
For 60 bucks.
Yeah, somehow when you're 20, except, not that particularly, but just being in bands when you're a young kid driving around and doing all the crazy stuff that happens, when you're going through it, you don't really think it's all that, I guess this is how things go down. It's only years later you look back and go, what was going on?
Yeah. We didn't know what to do because we were afraid we wouldn't get work from the bookers, if you complained about stuff. So you just brushed it off and went to the next gig.
And that was probably the case back then, honestly.
100%.
Yeah. Who's this broad? We don't want to listen to her yapping. You're done. Well, I could see how the club owners were just like, I don't even want to deal with that.
Yeah, they're just like, all right, we just won't book her again.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious as to the writing aspect. I know you do a ton of comedy writing. What is that gig? How does that work? Is it similar? I mean, I know you don't perform it, but the coming up with the jokes, I guess it depends on what you're working on, but do you sit down in a group with a bunch of people? How does that work?
It varies. So my first job, you kind of write on your own, and then everybody would get together and pitch the ideas together and then kind of help punch each other's stuff up. But a lot of it you're kind of doing alone. And then there was a show I was on where I was in the office with the other 5 writers. We were all in the same room. So we were always yelling over our cubicles and, jokes and this and trying to outdo each other. But people would help each other, but usually it would be you waited till the other ones left, and then when there were 2 of us left, then we'd be like, hey, you didn't want to show weakness. I mean, because if there's blood in the water on a show like that, they know, if someone's going to get, go, it's going to be you. Don't ask for too much help. So it's been like that. It's been where I just write at home or I come in. It's really. It just varies on the show. trying to think of a weird job I had. Well, I worked on BattleBots, and I had to write like all the crazy, like, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Farouk, who's the announcer, like he does these like poems almost. They're like, not like limericks, but what do you call them? When
Haiku?
two,
Haiku?
yeah, like haikus.
Really?
Yeah, they were kind of like haikus. So like we had to write like hundreds of these because each time two robots fought, he would give an intro to each robot.
Okay.
And yeah, and there were 3 of us doing this. And it was like, oh my God, it was super crazy after a while. So we were just looking for themes all the time, you know, like how many intros can we write about Mammoth? I mean, Mammoth kept winning every friggin' fight. And we're like, oh, Mammoth is back. So like, I sometimes would record them off the TV, and I just saw one that I did, and it was like, Mammoth, it was like, this guy's on the hunt, something, it's someone you don't want to confront. And then we had Farouk look at the camera and go, like your feelings. And like anything to make it different, you know, like we would try to do. And then it got so crazy. The next season, they just did they only did intros for the first time they fought and in the finals. Because I don't know how he still had a voice at the end of those days.
Yeah.
It was nuts. I mean, it was like 20 a day.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. But so that was like me and another guy, this guy Jay Light, who's a Comedy Store comic. He and I wrote together all the time. We sat next to each other and we'd be working out stuff. And then my friend Murray got hired, and I had him brought in, and he's really great at collaborating. So we really, really helped each other on that. There was definitely a team there, and that was nice. So
Yeah.
really liked that.
How did you get your first writing gig? Was it through stand-up or just bumping into somebody? How did you get the first one?
Well, somebody told me. I started to realize I didn't really want to perform as much anymore. I had all these ideas that I was writing, and I'd always like pitch jokes to other comics, and I'd write stuff with Ralphie, and we'd write stuff together. And so he's like, Mama, if you want to be a writer, you just got to start telling everybody you're a writer. So when people ask you, you know, what do? You say, I'm a comedy writer. And I'm like, okay. You know, I'm gonna start doing that. So literally we'd go to the Improv, everyone would hang out. They're like, you a comic? I'm like, I am, but I'm mostly a comedy writer. And I just started saying it. And then boom, this opportunity comes up. I hook up someone with someone else. That person gets the head writer job. So Ralphie goes, hey, you just helped him out. Call him up and tell him you want to be his assistant. I'm like, okay. So I did. And I got it.
Wow.
And I had to learn like all this like secretarial stuff I'd never done before, like certain formats and formatting and, you know, all this kind of crazy stuff, and how to put scripts together and do like up, you know, when you replace the pages. And I mean, this was like old school. We didn't have the digital. This was 2002.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't have digital scripts. And it was like, so I did that. I did the script. I was a script coordinator, and I was the writer's assistant. And then I wrote every day, and I pitched every day. So there'd be like a pile that would go home with Jay Moore and would go home with KP Anderson, who was our executive producer, and mine was at the bottom. So if they got to me, you know, I'd be thrilled. And I got enough stuff on the air that I got a reel together, and I got an agent. And then after that, I just started getting submissions. And then I've been doing it for, you know, 20 years, almost 20 years, I guess.
Yeah. Did you ever write a song or take a
I've
stab?
written lots of songs. I used to write for Wayne Brady. I was Wayne Brady's writer, and I wrote a lot of his song parodies.
No way.
And that was fun. Oh my God. And he's so naturally talented. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we got to work with the band. I loved it. I worked with the band every morning, and we'd have, you know, rehearsal. And if Wayne wasn't there, I'd get to do the song, and it'd be super fun. And I'm not a singer, but you know, it'd be fun. And it was like a fun way to come to work. And so I did those with him for the last year of the talk show. I was there the whole time and working with him. And that was super fun. And I'd be like agonizing over a line. I'm like, oh, what do I say here? And Wayne would just walk in and go, what is it? And I'm like, I don't know. You say this and this. And he'd be like, it's turquoise. And then he'd leave. And I'm like, oh, damn it. That's it. You know, like it would just come to him because of all that improv, you know, that he's done, and it's just so
Yeah.
natural to him. But this is actually a funny story. Raelyn, you will love this.
Okay.
You know, Craig Gass is, Ralphie's gone. Ralphie's passed away.
Mhm.
But, you knew him in Nashville, right? He was living there. Did you guys ever see him?
Who, Ralphie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen him, but we didn't see him running around.
No, I didn't know him.
Okay. Because you definitely would have seen him. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I know there's a
and he
lot of
did
large
that-
people in Nashville too, so he might blend in a little more than he
You've been
does in
here,
Los
you've-
Angeles.
That's true. That's
Just
true.
saying.
But he thinks that's funny. So he and Craig are like my closest, male comedy friends, forever. And they're both family, like Christmas's family. Craig's my brother. So, and we fight like brother and sister. So at the very beginning, when I started working on Wayne Brady, that's when Craig was doing Howard Stern every day. And Howard hated Wayne. And they used to get our feed because we were live to tape.
Okay.
So we would tape the day before, and then it would go on the next morning, or sometimes no, we were live to tape. So he had the CBS feed.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So he would get the feed of our songs, and at Fridays we would do the news of the week, and we'd pick some song and parody the song. And oh God, and Howard would just rip it apart. And Craig called me and he's like, I don't know if you heard, but I'm like, I did, because it was bothering Wayne. And he was sensitive. He was like, man, that's not cool. Like, what's his problem? Like, what does he care that we're singing the news? That's my audience. They like it, and it's true, like that's the audience. Well, so one day Craig's on hold because he did a call in. And then Howard goes, we got Craig Gass on the phone. He's going to tell us about blah, blah, blah. But before we do, you got to see what Wayne did this morning. I mean, this is just, and we had dancers come out and we did like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, and he had the hat and the whole thing. And I forget what the parody was, but anyway, but Howard just ripped it apart. And Craig's like, I'm sitting there on hold and I'm like, do I say actually, because he'd always go, who writes this? This writing is horrible. That's what he'd say. And Craig wanted to be like, actually, my friend, she writes some of my stuff for this. Like, she's the one writing the stuff for Wayne. He goes, I wanted to say it, but then I didn't know what to do. So he just didn't. But I mean, we laughed about that every time. So cut to like 5 years later, maybe 2 years later, I'm doing this show every Monday night with Craig and with Casey Armstrong from Howard Stern, when Casey still used to be on the show. He knows the story, whatever, we talk about it. He tries to get me on to come and talk about the Wayne Brady songs with Howard. And I'm like, because he was booking the show at the time, I go, so he can make fun of me and make fun of Wayne? Do you think I'm an idiot? Like, that would burn my bridge with Wayne so fast. I don't care. I don't need to be on the Howard Stern show. Like, I don't need to be in it. Like, I don't care. And I was like, there's no freaking way I'm doing that to Wayne. That's mean. So like in the middle of all that, he did the Chappelle show and did that hilarious bit where I'm Wayne Brady, bitch. And everybody was talking about how funny that was. And I feel like that was like, and I remember coming to work and being like, Wayne, everybody at the Improv is talking about how funny this is. Like, everybody's talking about it. And it seemed like that, kind of killed the Howard raining on our parade every single Friday.
I was just thinking about that skit when you were talking about it. I was like, because it seemed like Wayne Brady was persecuted by certain comedians in a certain scene for no reason during all that.
No
Because
reason.
everybody liked him. He was funny. It was the whose line is it anyway or whatever. But for some reason, he got singled out. I don't know. There's a few people, like Dane took a beating at some point. Carrot Top was talking about taking a beating, and these people, you're like, what? And then eventually you get so popular that it doesn't really, I'm sure it didn't bother him too much after a while. But when he did the Chappelle show thing, it was like, come on, man. How do you not like this guy now?
Uh-huh. And I think it's jealousy. Like, comics are very quick to hate the other comics that are kind of newer and shit's happening for them. They're very quick to shit on them and hate them. Like, that happened to Angela Johnson. I was in a comedy contest with her. She was killer in it. She was great. She got second place, like Angela Hoover won, and Angela Johnson. I got fourth, and then she got second, and she was great. And then she started getting big from her viral. She was one of the first comics to go viral from her nail salon bit. And so she started working clubs. She started headlining, but she was smart. She got other comics to work with her to build her set, and built it. And anytime anyone would shit on her because it was jealousy, I'm like, she is working so hard to keep that up. I'm like, you can't say anything bad about her. She is funny. You can't say she's not. People just get so petty, and it gets very childish, but
ego gets in the way. There's enough room for everybody to be funny and successful, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
I was on the Howard Stern show once.
Were you?
Yeah, me and Amy called in with the Barbie twins.
Yeah.
Because he's actually a big animal advocate. His wife is, or Beth his wife?
Mm-hmm.
Beth? And so my Aunt Amy and I started a nonprofit, humane education nonprofit called Willie's Kids. And we were calling in with the Barbie twins, Shane and Sia Barbie. And all I really remember from that conversation is my Aunt Amy saying that a maggot, it was just a baby fly. And that we should
protect maggots. That sounds like your Aunt Amy.
That's funny.
I didn't get much in because there were 4 of us on the phone call with like 3 of them there, but yeah, technically I was on the Howard Stern show.
Oh, that's cool.
You ever written a joke for somebody else that you're mad when they're killing with it and just go, damn, I should have kept that one for myself?
Yes.
It has to be as a writer. I'm just thinking about that. Like, why didn't I sit on that one?
That happens. And what's funny? I've just started to, it happened day before yesterday. I was working with a client. She's a headliner. She's doing the Nantucket Comedy Festival, and she's a big New York comic. And she's like, I need material about Nantucket. Help me out. So she hired me for a day for my, whatever I do, sessions consulting. And I thought of a couple funny jokes about cruise ships because I do cruises too. And I kept them.
There you go.
Hope you're not listening to this. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to keep this one. This one's good.
Yeah, you have to.
Sometimes I do that.
And I don't think people really think about, they know musicians, so there's a lot of times there's songwriters and performers, and a lot of times the performers haven't written their own songs. A lot of people know about that, but I don't think too many people understand that the same thing goes on in comedy too. I never really thought about that until semi-recently. You just assume whoever's saying it up there is just stuff they came up with.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Well, no one admits it. They don't want to admit it, but most of the stuff that I do or that I get hired for by other comics isn't just for their act. That's rare. It's usually newer people that hire me just for their act. It's usually when they're they're doing a tour with a band, and opening for bands is the hardest thing. It's really hard. So you just have to have all jokes about that band and whoever else is performing that night. And that is pretty much it. Or any other, band or genre or anything that everyone in that room is going to know what you're talking about. You can't do your act. It's too hard. So, and they just won't listen. They won't care. You can't be like my dad, you can't. So I get hired for that a lot.
You got any horror stories about opening for bands?
I have been lucky to steer clear of doing that. No one would really have me open for their band.
It doesn't go great for most people. I can tell you that. It doesn't go great for most. There's a few that can get away with it. I saw a guy get just absolutely crushed opening for, I think it was AC/DC maybe, in the early 90s.
Why?
Yeah, and I think it was just because they didn't want an opener, but this guy, he didn't get any words out, and it was just, get the fuck off the stage, just 10,000 people please leave. And the opening bands got that kind of treatment in some shows. I saw Autograph just get pummeled with beer bottles opening for Van Halen. So even bands can't necessarily open for other bands, but I can't imagine just walking up there by yourself trying to do that.
Oh, it's so hard. I'm trying to think, have I opened for a band? I can't even remember. I've gone in between bands. I've gone in between bikini dancers. That's fun.
Whoa.
Like, hey, hello, don't worry, I'm not going to take my clothes off. Please turn around. Like, I've done that. I used to do colleges where sometimes you'd be doing your set in front of the mailboxes, and you'd be doing and people would be coming up and just getting their mail while you're doing the show, or standing on the table in the lunchroom. Like those kind of college gigs. I mean, they paid pretty well. Like, when I was like in my mid late 20s, I did a lot of those. Not glamorous at all, but so what? It was fun. That was pretty fun.
That's why they pay so well, because you end up having to do it in front of mailboxes and stuff like that.
Oh, it was so brutal. I mean, just brutal.
Yeah, I think we
If there's nobody there as a comedian, do you have to tell the joke if you were hired, if there's not an audience?
Yes, I went to Dallas once and did this Arlington theater with this comic named Spanky, and they didn't do a very good job of promotions. And they flew us there. We had this nice hotel. I was all excited. My name was on the marquee, because usually I'm like brought along to, to punch up, or I'm opening, but they put me up there, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, and then we went in. There was like 6 people.
Oh,
And they still made us do the show.
how'd it go?
I forget what happened, but the girl opening and Spanky got into this huge fight, and I can't remember why. And I think it's because he's like, just cancel the show. But we did it, and I just went up, and my husband and I are basketball fans, and he's German, and we have a framed Dirk Nowitzki jersey in our bedroom next to the bed. And they were in the semifinal at the time. They were in the playoffs at the time, and it was hot. And so I just was like, I'm in Dallas. I'm just going to talk about the Mavericks, and that's all I'm going to do. So I just went in, did a couple jokes, made fun of the fact that no one was there, and then everything else I just did jokes about the Mavericks and about how my husband and I banter back and forth watching that, because he has to watch all the damn interviews afterwards. But now I'm glad I did, because it came in handy. So that's all I did.
I want to know the story about the wind down with Craig Gass and you guys, because you started to tell me at one point. I never really.
So, so Courtney goes up and does her set, and then Craig's doing his set. And he has a bit where I'm trying not to give too much of it away, but he does impressions,
Right.
So he did a little bit of a Morgan Freeman story and had some impressions. And then fast forward to like 35 minutes later. And all of a sudden, I'm in the front. So all I hear from behind me is this lady going, Morgan Freeman molested my friend. Right? Fingered or did he say fingered? She said fingered? Molested?
Craig kept saying fingered just to get the word that she said out, because she said Morgan Freeman raped my roommate.
Oh.
That's what she said.
Okay. That's what she said.
Uh-huh. Did she have any demonstrable proof?
She started crying and shaking, right?
Was she by herself?
She was with her husband.
With her husband.
So Craig, of course, starts trying to, he's like, you heard me talk about my deaf family earlier, he's like trying to be like, I'm cool. And she gets up and leaves. At this point, I look over and Courtney's like this.
Couldn't believe it. He's like, it's not funny. Your Morgan Freeman impression is not funny.
But it was like 40 minutes after he did it.
It was like so long later. It came out of nowhere.
So what was the husband doing while this was happening?
Eating.
So he'd probably seen this behavior before.
Definitely.
He just kept eating and didn't even pay attention to really acted like it didn't go on, right? Like she leaves and he just sits there eating, and Craig starts, talking about what's happening respectfully but funny. He did his Morgan Freeman impression again, but told what how Morgan Freeman would tell the story of what had just happened.
That's good.
Yeah, it was like something triggered something. Now, here is the part of the story that makes it not that funny, even though it is funny because it was so weird. This woman was very clearly physically ill. She looked like she was in the late stages of cancer.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, her skin was
I just
yellow.
thought she was like retarded. honestly, like an old retarded lady.
Oh, you probably
Yeah.
thought she was, oh, she's so skinny. Look at her. I like
No,
it.
she was not skinny.
Oh,
Neither
okay.
one of them were.
All right.
Well, her legs were kind of skinny and like yellow. And
Okay.
she had no hair. She was
Yeah.
bald. She had like a little bow. And it seemed like some kind of weird panic attack trigger. Like my sister said, my sister's a therapist, so I was asking her about it. She said, sometimes in late stages, they like, I'm about to die any second, and their heads could just go crazy and they say crazy things, because clearly that's not true. We don't believe that actually happened. It seemed, if that were the case, I think she would have left 30 minutes before.
Right.
Because the rest of Craig's set, is about laughing so hard he farted and Gene Simmons. Like, but there's nothing offensive. So it just seemed very disconnected. She was not quite all there. So yeah, her husband stayed and ate his food.
Finished
And
it.
Craig wasn't really noticing that, because I could tell he was like, so I just went, the husband's still eating. He's like, what? And then she came back in and got him and left. And then after that, we were all like, whoa. And my friend Kelly that was there, remember my girlfriend sitting next to you?
Yeah.
She was a waitress at the Comedy Store in the late 90s. That's
Okay.
why we're friends. That's how I know her. And she's just moved to Nashville. She's like, even after working at the Comedy Store where people got stabbed, like crazy shit, she's like, never seen anything like that.
Oh my God.
Crazy shit has happened at the Comedy Store.
Oh,
When he finally left, Craig sat down in the chair and he's like, guys, we're going to have to start the world's smallest Facebook support group. Oh, yeah, it was good. It was, I'm glad it happened. Also, I feel bad for her. God bless that lady. The
I do
cancer lady.
too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Batshit
Like,
crazy.
Ace Von Johnson was like making jokes about it after. He's like, that was bad. He's like, she's probably going to go home and die. I'm like, Ace, what? He's like, yeah, no, she was, I mean, that's it. That's the end. I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
It's possible she was just bald and fat and not dying at all and just a crazy woman.
Something wasn't right, though.
Something was off.
Even the outburst itself, the way it was said, it just something was
Damn,
not
I hate I missed
right.
it, honestly.
It was very I don't like calling people crazy, but it was so disconnected from reality. And it just didn't sound like, I mean, anyone who's really been traumatized, like it didn't really sound like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to take that away. I think maybe something awful happened to her or her roommate. Pretty sure it wasn't Morgan Freeman,
Right.
but something happened, sparks went off, and then, it became what it became. But my God.
Maybe it was just a man named Morgan Freeman and wasn't the Morgan Freeman.
Happen to have the same kind of distinctive voice too. Yeah, white dude, oddly enough, but hey,
That's hilarious.
Okay, so
Morgan Freeman.
I can't let you go without asking you this. And I know you said that your dad listened to my grandpa. But when was the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa? I guess you were really young with your dad.
Yeah.
Do you have any
really
special
young.
Papa Willie songs or stories or
The
anything?
Placido Domingo duet. I mean, perhaps if we heard that again, I mean, I can sing it in my head. The most expensive gift I ever gave my dad is a Willie Nelson signed guitar.
Oh, wow.
And it was at a benefit, and I'd just gotten this big job. I was writing on this show on True TV, and it was kind of a job that was like handed to me. And it was like, and then I got to the job and I'm like, oh, I don't do this. None of this is what I do. It was like science logistic kind of producing.
Yes.
And I'm like, no. I produce funny stuff where people's pants fall down and run into walls. Like I do jokes. Like, this is not what I do. So I was really struggling, just trying to keep the paycheck because it was such a good one.
Yeah.
And I was just like trying to hang on. And then we go to the benefit and I buy the guitar. I'm like, I got to buy my dad the Willie Nelson signed guitar. And then my husband's like, that is $500, it's $500. He's like, I go, it's for a good cause. And my dad is going to love this. Are you kidding me? He's going to absolutely love this. So I bought it, and then I got fired the next week.
Oh.
I got fired. And it was like a kind of mutual firing. I'm like, yeah, I got to go, but we're going to fire you so you can get unemployment. I'm like, yeah, this is not the job for me. But Yeah, and it's in his
You still have it?
office
You
on
still
a
have it?
stand. Oh yeah, it's in his office on a stand right next to his desk.
Nice.
Aw.
I got one last question before we let
Okay,
you go.
yeah.
Do writing versus stand up, which do you like better? Or is it like kind of like us as a band? Sometimes you're like, you've been playing live a bunch. You're like, I'm ready to record some stuff. Then you get in and record for a month or two. And you're like, I'm ready to get back out and play. You know, what is it like writing versus stand up, and which one is the most fun?
That's a good question. It's similar. Like if I'm writing on a TV show, sometimes I can't wait for production to end because I just want my life back. But like when I'm like doing consulting, like from home, which is what I've been doing for a while, which I kind of want to do forever, I really like it because I'm my own boss. I'm in my home. But then after 2 months of that, oh my God, get me out of here. I got to get out of here. But I prefer like instead of doing like clubs on the road because the money's so shitty.
Yeah.
They pay the same as they did 18 years ago. I'm not even exaggerating. Like sometimes I do get, I'm like, you paid me the same thing almost 20 years ago. Seriously? Like it's sometimes not really beneficial, but I love doing like the rock events and the Kiss events and like the one we just did in Vegas and I did Monsters of Rock cruise. That stuff I love. I love that. I try to hustle to get on the next one constantly. So that's my passion is that mix.
Yeah.
Because and that's the show that I want you to do. I don't mean to like lead into my own out, but I do the show called Punchlines and Backlines where we have musicians do comedy for the first time. And we work together and we do like a point of view set and we talk about only their personal lives, their music, their experiences. And then we punch it up and then they do a little rehearsal and it takes about a week or two, depending.
Oh, wow.
And then they get up and do it. So we just did it on Monsters of Rock with Kip Winger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was great. And I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's like pretty dry, you know, he kind of talks like this. And we were all, and everyone's like, that's all that people said to me, like Larry and they're like, she made Kip funny. So if you want to trust anyone to write your stuff, call Courtney because she made Kip Winger funny. Kip killed, like he killed. And it was super fun. And then we just did it in Nashville a few weeks ago with Todd Kearns and Zach Throne. And they both killed it. They were hilarious. And I would love to have another woman on my show. Hint, hint, Raelyn.
Yeah, I'd love to do it.
And because it's super fun. And they'll say to me, what if I bomb? What if I bomb? I'm like, you're not going to bomb. And they're like, but what if the jokes don't work? I go, they're going to work.
They're going to work.
I will make sure that you are going to do well. And he goes, so if joke doesn't work, can I blame you? If I bomb, can I blame you from the stage? Zach Throne said that. And I said, yep. Yes, can.
And I'm sure the audiences are pretty forgiving because they realize this person is not a stand-up comedian. So you're going into a nice, crowd that is receptive stepping out there, I'm sure.
That's true. And they're your fan already because the event or wherever we're doing it, they're already looking forward to seeing you. They're already a fan of your music and you. So like the way I set it up, is, that way, like we're, here's some songs. We love this. And, she's done this. And then I set it up and then bring you out into that. And literally after people are just so impressed when they hear the first punchline. They're like, shit, they just told the joke.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you just fall into I always say you just fall into this big, soft, comfy pillow. And sure, maybe not 100% of the jokes are going to kill, but I think we've been in the 90 percentile for every single show we've done. Everybody has done really, really well. Nobody's had a bad set. It's always been great. And it's fun.
Sounds like fun. You should film them. Do you?
We film some. I try not to because I know it makes people nervous.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try not to. But then after every show, I'm like, hey, does anyone have any film of that? And
just sneak one in the back so when it's good, you can go, hey, was that good? Yeah, I loved it. All right, we got it on film.
Yeah, I have the audio of Kip Winger because I know he was like, don't film me. I'm like, we're not going to, I promise. But I do have the audio and I've listened to it. I'm like, he would love to hear this, but it was very good. Very fun.
Last thing, do you know what Vinnie Vincent's pronoun is?
It's he.
Okay.
That's I've been talking.
Well, we have an argument going.
She's like, I think he's trying. I'm like, no, he just wears like the Hillary Clinton pantsuits and stuff. It's
does
not.
the
He's still a he.
You can't say trans anymore. You're canceled.
Did I say I did transition?
Transitioning that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll transition and be part of this punchlines and what was it called?
Backlines.
Yeah.
Lines and backlines.
If you need 2 female comedians, I'll go ahead.
Yeah. You kind of look.
I
like
love
a
it
girl.
with 2 people.
Yeah.
From far away in the back, you kind of look like a girl.
There you go.
Courtney, thanks for doing this with us. You're the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah. You're very funny, very good at podcasting. Thank you.
When are you coming back to Nashville?
Well, we're hoping August. I actually just got a text from Monsters of Rock while we were talking. I'm waiting to find out if we're doing Monsters on the Mountain. Should we find out together?
Yeah, open it up.
Oh, it's not. It's April. Call me when you can. Well, I don't know if that's a yes. We'll see.
Well, you made Kip Winger funny. It's still.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my claim to fame.
There you
That's
go.
of anything else I've ever done in my career. That's the one that I'm the most proud of.
Top of the resume for sure.
That's
Nice
true.
to meet you, Courtney. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, nice meeting you guys. Well, no, I already did, but thank you.
We're like this. Courtney's my favorite comedian.
She was great. Very talented woman. Very funny. Can't wait to see her when she comes back to Nashville.
Breaking news, women can be funny.
Some of them. And Courtney was one of them. Anyway, enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Enjoy your cigarette.